From before we can remember, there have always been helping hands there for us as we've grown. These hands would rouse us from our sleep, prepare our path for the day, and see to it that we were equipped to take on life. There have always been arms that warmed us with love, restrained us from defiance, and comforted our fears. There has always been a voice beckoning to us to follow the straight path, alerting us to danger and counseling us to wisdom. Parents. They are the God-given caretakers, instructors, and mentors of the home. The command to respect the office of mother and father is among the chief ordinances of the Bible. At the time, the wisdom of our parents is barely recognized at best. However, few people, as they come of age, find it difficult to recall the parental wisdom they received as children.
My dad always said to me when I was a kid, tell me who you go with and I'll tell you who you are. And it always made me realize that whoever I picked as my friends, that was the direction I was going to go in. And it really made me think about who I decided to hang out with. Something he always said too that was kind of humorous was, Dad is always right. It always stuck with me. He wasn't actually always right, but he wanted to teach us respect for authority and listening to his instruction. And he still says it to me. And I think he is usually right most of the time, and now I say it to my kids.
I just always remember my dad saying that it's not how you act in front of like other believers, but it's how you act when you're by yourself, because God's always watching. And that's like meant a lot to me lately, because anybody can put their Sunday best on in front of other Christians, but it's how you act around other non-believers and when you're by yourself. Like, are you doing the right thing when you're by yourself? Because God's always watching you.
Amen.
And I mean, the funny thing was like the same thing. Like, my dad always said like I told you so. Like, anytime I've ever done anything, he's like, no, you shouldn't do that. It's come back to be I told you so, because like he's never been wrong. He literally hasn't ever been wrong. So it's actually not even a funny thing.
That's right.
He literally has never been wrong. Yeah.
My mom always stressed honesty. I don't know in like what sense of it, but even when it was uncomfortable, she stressed honesty. And growing up, there were times as a kid when I wasn't honest, and it always ended up negative for me. I never didn't get caught. And it's nice that it made it so much easier as an adult to lead an honest life, learning that at a young age and being brought up that way.
Yeah.
Well, most mornings my mom would come in and open up our blinds and start singing Rise and Shine and Give God the Glory. Pretty much every morning.
My mom too.
And yeah, and at the moment, that's not always how you want to be woken up, but you think back on it and everything, no matter what you're facing, God gets the glory in it, and it's just a blessing each day. And then the other one that she would always say to me is, don't let the sun go down on your anger, which is a huge deal of not letting bitterness grow. So don't let the sun go down on your anger.
So when I was younger, my parents would always say to me, if you have something, like Dad and I are going to agree on it before you're allowed to do it. So I'd always say, Mom, can I have friends over? You have to go ask Dad. I was again, constantly asking Dad. It was so annoying, but it just further reinforced how my mom was trying to honor God and submitting to my dad, even when maybe she didn't agree with his choice.
Yeah, that's good.
My mom always says, just because you have an excuse to do something doesn't mean you should do that thing. And kind of to expound on it, just because you have an excuse to be mean to someone or kind of go do something doesn't mean you should always go do it. It kind of goes on the fact that everything is permitted and everything is beneficial, Paul said.
Yeah, whenever I would be going somewhere out with friends or whatever crazy thing we were doing, my mom was always like, BW, and that was be wise. She still says it now. It's like BW, and some people are like, what is BW? Right, it's be wise.
That's awesome.
I was always told to find a woman like my mom.
Going off what Lance said, she would tell me, particularly with regards to dating, not to rush into anything and just kind of wait for a godly spouse. And she would always say, you might think that you just want to find somebody and be married, but being married to the wrong person is way worse than being single. And I guess it kind of worked out for me in the end.
Deuteronomy says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Parents are given the responsibility of perpetually teaching, whether in the morning or evening, formally or informally, by words and by example. Their lives preached to us, and their sermon began the day each one of us were born. Amidst the many lessons and examples they impart, some stand out as especially significant.
Okay, so my parents always encouraged me to hang out with the right people. There were a lot of. I was from a small town. There wasn't a lot to do. There was just like any small town. When there's not a lot to do, kids find the wrong things to do. And so, just surrounded by a lot of kids who were just doing nothing with their lives, and because my parents had kind of come from a background where they had been through a lot, they made the mistakes already, and they knew what to look for. So they saw some of the friends that I was with, and they strongly encouraged me not to hang out with specific people. That was huge for me because I couldn't see it at the time, maybe. And some of those kids ended up getting in some really serious trouble. You know, you think about a lot of accidents, maybe like drug-related accidents where there's kids drunk driving. The person may not have been, you know, drunk who was in the back seat, but they were with the people who were. And so, you know, again, my parents just encouraging me not to be with people who were making the wrong decisions, because you can end up suffering the same consequences for maybe, you know, something that you weren't doing. So the verse that I wanted to share, that was a couple verses that they spoke into my life, were 1 Corinthians 15:33, and that is do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. So, you know, I would just encourage you guys to continue to seek out the right friends, the right fellowship. The other verse is Proverbs 13:20. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. And so continue to make the right choices with your relationships, because friends are a huge influence in your life, whether you think you're a strong individual or not. The longer you're around them, the more they wear off on you. And so looking back on it now, I can so see so many instances when just listening to my parents and being with the right people, being in the right place at the right time instead of the wrong place at the wrong time, has helped me. And just being here at Grace is one of the reasons I'm here, is because of good fellowship, good friendships that I established. And some of my best friends now are Christians, and they're those relationships that you're going to have forever. Whereas a lot of, my friends from growing up, I never even, you don't talk to them anymore, and some of them aren't even alive because of drugs and alcohol and different situations where there's just been bad consequences. So yeah, encourage you guys, listen to your parents. They've done it. They've screwed up for you already.
One of the most important things that my parents have taught me that I'm so grateful for is to just to serve others. They have spent so much of their own time going out of their way for others, and just setting a great example for me, just by always thinking about others before themselves. And if they hear of someone that needs help, they're right on it to help them, and to just do anything that they can. They're always offering to do stuff for other people, even when it means that their own time they don't get to spend doing whatever it is that they want to do, just because they're spending so much time serving others and putting other people's needs before their own, especially in the church, especially when it comes to our Christian brothers and sisters. Like back with Hurricane Sandy, when we went to, my mom and I went to a shelter that had opened up, and we spent hours and hours, and my mom was so passionate about just helping these people, whether we spent a lot of time organizing clothes for them, and you could just tell how much she loves the people just by, people that she just met, just by, just watching her with them and just seeing how she interacts with them, seeing how she's so quick to, just hug them when they were, looking like they needed a hug, speak kind words to them even when others were talking badly about other people. But that's just one way that she has really, impacted my life. And my dad, friends of ours, Lindsay and Gil, they moved down the street from us, and they are renovating their house. And my dad was over there for hours and hours just helping them to renovate their house. And they both are just setting such a great example. And that's just really affected me and shown me how I should be living my life, by showing Christ's love to others, just by watching the example that my parents have set for me.
Proverbs 1:8-9. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. They will be a garland to grace your head and a chain to adorn your neck. As we proceed down the course God has providentially ordained for us, He reminds us through His Word of the incredible importance we should place on the instruction received from our caring parents. Adorning ornaments of beauty, the wisdom of our parents should be readily seen when someone looks at our lives.
I think the most important thing that I learned from my parents is actually the sum of all the individual lessons. In a way, it's what kind of all the lessons and examples meant together at one time. Their wisdom set the stage for my walk with Christ. Their teaching kind of cleared the ground and prepared the soil for the seed of the gospel. In owning my own home, I've tried over and over and over to plant grass seed in the backyard, and it turns out that planting the seed is just part of the process. Before I spread the seed, I have to get out all the roots, the rocks, the bugs, put down good soil, loosen up the ground a bit, and in that environment, growing grass is favorable. Sure, seed's gonna grow without all this preparation, but this preparation welcomes growth. And I think that our parents' wisdom is like that. The totality and the consistency of all the lessons combined, well, that removed the rocks and the roots that would hinder the gospel in my life. They taught me that I should work hard and with perseverance, but more importantly, it prepared me to appreciate God's creation. They taught me to forgive, but in doing so, it created in my heart an awe for God's patience. They disciplined me, but what resulted was an understanding of how the Father will not let His children sin without consequence. See, every lesson and example not only made sure that I was on a good course for my life, practically, but the real value in it was that it drew me closer to Christ. And so as I learned about God's hatred for sin, my utter wickedness, Christ's sacrifice on the cross to pay for the penalty for my sin, which kept me from paying for my own sin in hell, the innumerable lessons that I learned from my parents, my whole childhood, they came to life. And likewise, the gospel was adorned by all of these brilliant life lessons that I had heard for so long. That's the beauty. Christ is the beauty. And the wisdom of our parents is often the prepared soil that the seed of the gospel is planted in.
So as Scripture clearly teaches, listen to the wisdom of your parents, and as you grow into the independence of your own life, do not forsake or turn from the treasure that is your parents' instruction.